On May 30th, 2010, a 21-year-old woman named Stephanie Flores participated in a poker tournament at the Atlantic City Casino in Lima, Peru. She was a keen poker player and had recently secured a $10,000 win merely 2 days prior, leading her to feel confident about her prospects of success. Before embarking on this trip, she informed her father that she planned to be away for a few days before returning home. But following that particular journey, she never made it back. Stephanie Flores resided with her father. Their family held a prominent position within the community. His father, Ricardo Flores, was a renowned car racer and had been a presidential candidate in Peru. The household comprised 5 children, 4 sons and their sole daughter, Stephanie. The parents held deep affection for all their offspring, showing particular devotion to their youngest child, their only daughter, whom everyone consistently looked after. Despite their elevated social standing and considerable wealth, all members of the family remained humble, amiable individuals who appreciated a simple existence. The 4 sons dedicated their time to event organization. Stephanie, still in her 3rd year at the University of Lima, pursued studies in business administration and held a part-time position alongside her brothers. Additionally, Stephanie possessed a strong affinity for gambling, generating substantial income through it. When Stephanie failed to return home following the poker tournament, her father, Ricardo, grew concerned. This conduct was uncharacteristic of Stephanie, a responsible individual who had never vanished previously. The man contacted his sons, seeking their assistance. His brothers, too, found themselves unable to contact Stephanie. Consequently, they began telephoning all the missing woman's acquaintances, yet no one could furnish them with any valuable details regarding her location. They traversed the entire neighborhood in search of their sister, but were unsuccessful in locating her. The father then contacted the police to report Stephanie's disappearance. Law enforcement proceeded to the hotel hosting the poker tournament and interviewed the establishment staff. These individuals were unaware of the participants' whereabouts. Detectives promptly requested the hotel's CCTV footage and initiated its review. Upon examining surveillance footage from a corridor adjacent to the conference room where the tournament took place, investigators discovered that around 3 a.m. on May 30th, the young woman entered and took a seat beside an individual in light-colored attire who was already at a table. They conversed amiably throughout the tournament and departed the venue together approximately 5 in the morning. Hotel personnel subsequently recollected observing them in each other's company. The man appeared courteous and genial. One staff member even noted that the unknown individual bore a resemblance to the actor Brad Pitt, a detail that stuck in his memory. However, law enforcement questioned the couple's destination after the tournament concluded. As investigators commenced scrutinizing other surveillance camera recordings, they uncovered the answer to this inquiry. It was revealed that Stephanie and the stranger entered his room, number 309, at 5:16 a.m. sometime later. The man departed and subsequently returned carrying 2 cups of coffee and pastries. Then, 3 hours and 20 minutes after their initial entry into the hotel room together, the man exited once more with his backpack and did not come back. Following his departure, he instructed the hotel staff not to disturb the woman in the room, and they adhered to this instruction until the police arrived. The detectives determined it was opportune to enter the room and ascertain the young woman's condition. Yet, upon opening the room door, all their expectations were shattered. Police discovered a horrifying sight. Stephanie Flores lay deceased within her hotel room. She had been brutally beaten to death, her body covered in blood. Investigators retrieved a tennis racket from the premises, which they posited was the weapon used in the homicide. The victim's neck was fractured. Blood emanated from the left side of her head, from her ear and nose, and indications of strangulation were present. Additionally, blunt force trauma was noted at the back of the head and lower neck. This blunt force trauma resulted in a cerebral hemorrhage and proved to be the cause of death, as subsequently concluded by the medical examiner. Stephanie was found fully clothed, lying on her back, and had not been sexually assaulted. The possibility of a sexual motive was dismissed. Detectives now faced the task of identifying the potential motive for the crime. Robbery emerged as a plausible explanation, as the unidentified assailant had taken all her money, cards, and jewelry. The young woman possessed a substantial amount of cash, approximately $15,000, of which $10,000 was her recent winnings, and $5,000 had been provided by her father for a new laptop. Following their examination of the crime scene, police already had an idea of the perpetrator. The individual was indeed the same stranger captured on the CCTV footage. The inquiry disclosed that room 309 was registered under the name of Joran Vandersloot, a 22-year-old Dutch national. Police initiated investigations into this man, uncovering a significant revelation. It became apparent that he was listed on an international wanted list with a highly complex history linked to his identity. Joran Vandersloot had for a considerable time been a suspect in the disappearance of another young woman, American Natalee Holloway, who vanished under mysterious circumstances on the island of Aruba on May 30th, 2005, precisely 5 years prior to Stephanie's murder. This detail appeared notably troubling, suggesting a potential connection to further offenses, thereby presenting law enforcement with a crucial mandate to apprehend this perilous killer with utmost urgency. The individual was sought after, and police actively pursued his capture, yet his whereabouts remained unknown. Concurrently with their search, law enforcement officers delved into the specifics of the Natalee Holloway disappearance case, aiming to gain a deeper comprehension of the man they were pursuing. Natalee Holloway was born on October 21, 1986, in Clinton, Mississippi, United States. She was the family's oldest child. Her parents' divorce occurred when she was 7, and the children subsequently lived with their mother, though they preserved an affectionate bond with their father. At the age of 14, Natalee's mother remarried a prosperous businessman, prompting the family's relocation to his residence in Mountain Brook, Alabama. She excelled academically, participated in cheerleading and dance, and graduated with honors. She secured a full scholarship and enrolled in university. The young woman had her entire future before her, but a long-anticipated trip tragically derailed all her aspirations. Natalee Holloway, then 18, embarked on a dream vacation to the Caribbean island of Aruba. This island is recognized as an intrinsic component of the Netherlands, situated in the southern Caribbean Sea and grouped with other islands as the Dutch Caribbean. This island stands among the safest in the Caribbean region, boasting a remarkably low crime rate. The highly anticipated vacation journey was arranged by the school for graduating high school students. In May 2005, a contingent of 124 students and 11 teachers traveled to the island. The vacation was unfolding splendidly. They settled into a pleasant, all-inclusive Holiday Inn. In Aruba, the legal drinking age is 18. Each day of their holiday largely followed the same pattern. Vacationers woke at their leisure and enjoyed an unburdened day. They socialized, conversed, relaxed on the beach, and swam in the sea's crystalline blue waters. Occasionally, in the afternoon, following lunch, they might take a nap. In the evenings, they proceeded to dinner and then to the government bar, sampling various cocktails, including alcoholic beverages. May 29, 2005, marked the final day of their vacation. This particular day mirrored the preceding ones, save for the fact that everyone was engaged in packing their luggage. Natalee prepared her bags, as did others, placing her passport beside her suitcase before heading to dinner. The group of vacationers dined, with some continuing to revel while others retired to their rooms to prepare for an early night before their flight. The subsequent morning, students and teachers convened in the Holiday Inn lobby to check out of the hotel and make their way to the airport. However, the teachers noted one person was absent. Upon a full head count, Natalee Holloway was found to be missing, and no one in the group had any knowledge of her whereabouts. The teachers telephoned her room, presuming she had simply overslept an early wake-up, but the young woman did not respond. Consequently, they proceeded to her room with a staff member and gained entry. To their astonishment, they found her absent. Her suitcase containing Natalee's possessions and passport remained. All hotel personnel and teachers were frantically searching the entire establishment for the girl, yet their efforts proved fruitless. Around 11 a.m., a teacher contacted Natalee's mother, informing her that the young woman was missing and could not be located anywhere. He inquired if Natalee might have ventured off alone. However, the mother emphatically assured the teacher that Natalee would never act in such a manner. The woman became convinced that her daughter had been abducted. I could see that moment. All teachers and students were stunned by this unforeseen development. They were all acutely aware of the missing individual's responsible nature and understood that she would not play such a prank. Something significant had clearly befallen her. The teachers reported Natalee's disappearance to the police, and together with law enforcement, they continued their search for her. Meanwhile, the remaining students and a handful of teachers flew back home. The anxious mother, feeling utterly helpless, contacted both her husband and Natalee's biological father, apprising them of her disappearance. Together, they secured the earliest flight from a nearby city to the island to commence their search for their daughter. The mother also reached out to 911 and the FBI, informing them of the incident. Upon their arrival in Aruba, they immediately began searching for Natalee and questioning individuals present at the hotel and resort. They disseminated photographs of the missing individual and remained deeply engaged in the investigation from its outset. The inquiry disclosed that Natalee had not spent the final night in her hotel room. She had not even appeared there. Some of her friends observed her conversing in the casino, which was connected to the hotel, with a very tall man of European, Dutch descent. Her friends believed she might have departed with him. At 1 a.m., the casino closed, and security guards witnessed Natalee exit the establishment and enter a gray Honda with 3 men. The employees recognized these individuals, who were frequent visitors. They were Dutch, 17-year-old Joran Vandersloot, 21-year-old Deepak Kalpo, and his younger brother, 18-year-old Sudhish Kalpo. Police reviewed the CCTV footage, which corroborated the guards' statements. The reviewed footage depicted Natalee seated at the same table as Joran, after which they all left in unison. Certain employees even reported that Joran frequently frequented the casino, appearing as a skilled predator of young, affluent female tourists, whom he would swindle for money. At that point, Joran himself was merely 17 years old and resided on the island with his parents. The individual hailed from a respectable family. His father was a lawyer with aspirations of becoming a judge. This young man was an athlete, performing exceptionally well in school, and possessed a promising future as a soccer player. However, during his teenage years, he began exhibiting behavioral issues, starting to frequent bars and casinos, and abusing alcohol. All investigative paths pointed to this Dutch man, prompting Natalee's parents, accompanied by law enforcement, to seek answers from him. The gray Honda, last observed with Natalee, was parked outside. The young man's father answered the door when police conveyed their suspicions about Joran, responding that his son had gone to another hotel's casino. The officers proceeded there to speak with the individual, but he was no longer present. While the search for Joran was ongoing, his father contacted the police, informing them that his son and his friend Deepak had returned home, whereupon law enforcement arrived at their residence. The friends were separated and subjected to individual interrogations. Their accounts not only diverged, but also underwent continuous alterations. Initially, both asserted they had never encountered the missing individual whatsoever. However, when police presented them with CCTV footage of their interactions with her, Joran promptly recalled having met her that evening. Following their time in the casino, the young woman requested he accompany her to a club. He consented and invited 2 friends, Deepak and his brother Sudhish, and they drove there collectively. They enjoyed themselves immensely, partaking in drinks and dancing. Subsequently, they drove Natalee back to the hotel and never saw the missing individual again. However, Joran later clarified that he observed a hotel security guard harassing Natalee as she entered. Nevertheless, police were aware that this narrative was false. They had already examined all camera footage and understood that the young woman never re-entered the hotel. Throughout the investigation, the individuals were apprehended multiple times for perjury, yet, lacking sufficient evidence against them, they were released without charges. During subsequent interrogations, their story evolved, and they asserted that after the club, they proceeded to the lighthouse to observe sharks and then to Aruba Beach for a stroll. Joran contended that their friends had departed, leaving them there. Natalee, he claimed, was so inebriated that she repeatedly lost consciousness and stumbled, ultimately prompting him to abandon her alone because he needed to rise early the next day for class, and Natalee showed no intention of leaving. According to his account, the young woman wished to maximize her enjoyment of the final night and permitted him to depart. Joran affirmed he had no knowledge of what transpired with her thereafter, but now, in retrospect, he expressed regret for having left her alone given her subsequent disappearance. Joran maintained that they had merely kissed Natalee that night and had not engaged in intimacy. Friends, conversely, stated that the Dutchman toyed with the young woman before leaving her on the beaches. Police officers meticulously monitored that beach, but uncovered no clues regarding the missing woman's location there. A gardener at a different hotel provided law enforcement officials with a fresh lead. He reported seeing 3 young men, Joran, Deepak, and Satish, digging a hole in the vacant lot near the pond on the night of the girl's disappearance. Police arrived at the specified location, drained the pond, and excavated the entire area, but nothing was found. Time elapsed, yet no one was ever charged, and Natalee was never located. Her family expressed dissatisfaction with the investigation, leveling accusations of incompetence against the police. Those close to the missing woman were convinced that Joran was implicated in the case and ought to have been compelled to confess, but law enforcement failed to exert such pressure. The family of the missing woman declared a $100,000 reward for information concerning Natalee's whereabouts and pledged $1 million to anyone who could return her alive. Locals inundated authorities with calls, offering their suspicions and conjectures in pursuit of the reward, yet these leads proved unproductive. Police officers criticized the parents, alleging their actions regarding the reward were improper. The reward, they claimed, significantly diverted them with irrelevant leads, thereby undermining the investigation. The parents, meanwhile, persisted in displaying posters and distributing flyers, actively participating in the search for their daughter, never relinquishing their efforts. Aruban authorities felt that the Holloway family was exerting excessive pressure to secure an arrest before sufficient evidence was accumulated, all of which created complications for the inquiry. At T1 juncture, Joran, Deepak, and Satish were held in detention for 3 weeks. Local residents believed they were on the verge of being charged, but their assumption was incorrect. The trio were simply set free. Deepak and Satish were released after 3 weeks, while Joran remained in custody for an extended period, serving an additional 2 months in jail. At a certain point, the Kalpoe brothers informed the police that their father had assisted Joran in concealing involvement in the girl's case. The man was apprehended, but with no evidence against him, he was released after 3 days. Joran's father, a legal professional, subsequently sued the Aruban police for wrongful detention, prevailing in the case and securing $40,000. The high school student's disappearance case garnered considerable attention, receiving extensive media coverage in the U.S., which concerned Aruban authorities, given that their primary revenue source was linked to American tourists. The case attained high-profile status due to Natalee's parents' insistent demands for justice for their daughter and their efforts to compel police action. Joran himself was equally proactive in this regard. He willingly participated in numerous interviews on American television channels for financial gain, openly discussing his encounter with Natalee and the events of that evening. The young man endeavored to persuade everyone of his integrity and disassociation from the girl's disappearance. A year following Natalee's vanishing, Joran relocated to the Netherlands and resumed his studies. He granted interviews to local television stations, asserting he had been falsely incriminated. He maintained that he left Natalee Holloway on the beach the night she disappeared and then returned home. Joran, collaborating with a journalist, even published a book about Natalee's disappearance 2 years after the event, wherein he recounted his narrative of innocence. Thus, the individual profited significantly from the narrative and its accompanying media frenzy. Yielding to pressure from Natalee's parents, police resolved to conduct a search of Joran's residence and the adjacent vicinity on the island of Aruba. They meticulously searched the entire house and excavated the yard, yet discovered nothing pertinent to the investigation. The case investigation was closely observed globally, particularly in the USA, Aruba, and the Netherlands. Joran achieved considerable notoriety, and public opinion fractured into two factions. Some suspected his involvement in Natalee's disappearance, while others believed his assertions. Concurrently, Joran persisted in appearing on television programs. During one such appearance, he succumbed to the pressure and barrage of questions, hurling a glass containing a drink directly at the journalist. 3 years after Natalee's vanishing, fresh details surfaced. It was revealed that a witness testified to having seen Joran and his father on the night of Natalee's disappearance. Near the pond at 4 a.m., the young man was observed running from the pond towards a fast food restaurant, and a few minutes later, two men drove away in a red Jeep. A second investigative lead surfaced, stemming from Joran's ex-girlfriend, who informed police that one evening the Dutchman remarked to her, "Who knows? Maybe now you're on the beach with someone who is capable of disposing of a dead body." These words profoundly unsettled her, leading her to believe that an innocent individual would not utter such a statement. Despite numerous leads, clues, and the suspect's inconsistent narratives, the island's police officers maintained they still lack sufficient evidence to file charges. The cases against Joran, Deepak, and Satish were closed. According to investigators, these cases would only be reopened should new details come to light. They were never formally charged in connection with Natalee Holloway's disappearance. Joran appeared to take pleasure in his perceived impunity and recent notoriety. In 2008, a recording surfaced showing a Dutchman detailing Natalee's death. Dutch journalists had captured this on a hidden camera. In the recording, he described being on the beach with Natalee and engaging in sexual activity. But afterwards, she abruptly convulsed and lost consciousness. He then claimed to have asked his friends to transport her body by boat, and they disposed of her by dumping her into the sea. Another recording later emerged where he explicitly expressed joy that Natalee's body remained undiscovered, implying that he received assistance in this act. Yet, remarkably, he evaded accountability for all these claims. Police officers did not consider his filmed confession seriously, stating it was insufficient for a trial. To prosecute him, they required the discovery of a body and concrete evidence, which they lacked. They speculated that Joran was merely seeking notoriety and financial gain, fabricating these narratives for that purpose. For a period, Joran even underwent treatment at a psychiatric clinic, having admitted himself. Subsequently, he relocated to Bangkok, Thailand, where he acquired a restaurant using funds earned from interviews and books, commencing a business venture. In the same year, another journalist conducted an interview with Joran during his time in Thailand. The man asserted that he sold Natalee into sex slavery for money, sharing the proceeds with the Kalpo brothers, who had assisted him. He also claimed to have trafficked Thai women into slavery in the Netherlands, earning $30,000 per woman. After the interview concluded, he contacted the journalist again, declaring it was a joke. Joran's conduct proved utterly inappropriate. Following the interview, he encountered difficulties with local authorities. Local police investigated the information he had divulged regarding the trafficking of Thai women. Consequently, he was compelled to flee the country, abandoning his burgeoning business, though he later succeeded in selling the restaurant. Soon after, his father succumbed to a heart attack, and the man attributed his death to himself. For a period, he was once more admitted to a psychiatric hospital due to a nervous breakdown. After his discharge, Joran faced significant hardship. He now required funds and devised a new method to acquire them. In 2019, a lawyer representing the Holloway family reported that a Dutchman, using an anonymous alias, had approached him with a proposition. The individual requested $250,000 for revealing details concerning the location of Natalee Holloway's remains, seeking an advance payment of $25,000. But the investigation confirmed that Joran was the sender of these messages. Natalee's father delivered an advance of $25,000 and paid it to Joran when they rendezvoused on the island of Aruba. On this occasion, the individual presented a fresh narrative. He purportedly picked up Natalee, but she desired to be released. Consequently, Joran threw her, and upon falling, she accidentally struck her head on a rock, dying instantly. He claimed, sought his father's help, and together they interred her within the foundation of the house. The young man asserted it was an accident and proclaimed his innocence. He pointed to the supposed burial site. Police verified this information, discovering it to be false. The house had already been constructed at the time of Natalee's disappearance, making it impossible to conceal a body there. Furthermore, after this meeting, the missing woman's father received an email from him, admitting he had fabricated the story, and Natalee's parents collaborated with the FBI to accumulate evidence against the Dutchman, aiming to prosecute him for at least extortion fraud, eventually leading to a criminal case being filed. Joran faced charges of extortion, and subsequent to this, he escaped to Peru, the location where the Stephanie Flores incident transpired on June 3, 2010. Police received a call from Joran's ex-girlfriend, providing a tip regarding the Dutchman's location. It was discovered that he had telephoned her, requesting to borrow money to cover the cost of a flight, and the girlfriend consequently reported him to the authorities. Joran was apprehended in Chile, having traversed a significant distance from Peru to Chile via 2 taxi rides, with the intention of purchasing a plane ticket there. During the apprehension, police observed that the man's attire was stained with blood. It seemed he was in such haste to escape that he had no opportunity to change his clothes. Joran was extradited to Peru, where he faced charges for the murder of Stephanie Flores. During his initial police interrogation, he adamantly maintained his innocence. The man asserted that armed male robbers had entered the hotel room, stolen all valuables, and shot the young woman, but he claimed he managed to flee, and the gunfire resulted in the slain woman's blood getting on his clothing. However, police naturally found this unbelievable. The hotel's CCTV footage depicted no armed robbers, no gunshots were heard, and most importantly, the young woman had not been shot. For days subsequent to his arrest, he ultimately confessed to the murder. Joran recounted that upon entering the room, everything was pleasant. They were engaged in a congenial conversation until he observed Stephanie Flores accessing his laptop and reading information concerning the Natalee Holloway case and his potential implication in her disappearance. The man began to clarify to Stephanie that it was a misunderstanding, asserting he had no involvement in Natalee's case and was innocent of any wrongdoing. However, the young woman became frightened and disbelieved him. She struck him in the face and attempted to flee the room, an act that ignited his fury. The man assaulted her, elbowing her in the nose before proceeding to choke her. Blood was present everywhere, including on his shirt, prompting him to remove it and place it over the young woman's face, covering her mouth. Joran ceased his assault only when she showed no further signs of life. The man expressed remorse for the incident, attributing it to alcohol and the woman's sudden actions. He lamented that he feared she would contact the police, that he characterized it as an impulsive act, stating he simply lost control and could not permit himself to be pursued by law enforcement. However, investigators considered the situation far simpler. They posited that the murder's motive might have been robbery, given that money and valuables were absent from the room. Joran, aware he now confronted a lengthy prison term in Peru, attempted to negotiate a plea bargain with the prosecution. He proposed revealing the location of Natalee Holloway's remains in exchange for being cleared of all charges. Nevertheless, this offer was rejected. Consequently, the trial commenced. All evidence pointed directly to him, leading to a relatively swift judicial process. The prosecutor presented all corroborating proof. The man was captured on CCTV entering and exiting the room solely with Stephanie, had the deceased woman's blood on his wrist, and his DNA was found on the victim's body and the murder weapon. The defense had no grounds for objection, prompting Joran to plead guilty on his lawyer's counsel, who had assured him of a maximum sentence of 15 years. Ultimately, Joran was convicted and received a 28-year prison sentence. He was also mandated to pay compensation to the family of the deceased Stephanie, totaling $75,000. He expressed dissatisfaction with the verdict, blaming his lawyer and the police, whom he alleged coerced his confession. It was also determined that upon completing his sentence in Peru, Joran would be extradited to the United States, where he would face trial on charges of fraud and extortion against the Holloway family. In 2014, while incarcerated, Joran met Natalee Figueroa, a 33-year-old Peruvian accountant who visited the prison to sell candy and cigarettes. Thus, a romance blossomed between them, and soon they resolved to marry. Subsequently, the couple welcomed a child, a daughter whom the spouses named Natalee Vandersloot, honoring Joran's grandmother, Trudy. Due to the permissive regulations, his wife visited him in prison twice weekly, consistently describing him as the kindest man imaginable. However, in 2020, Joran chose to divorce her, prompted by another, more attractive young woman, 24-year-old Ava, with whom he was involved in smuggling illicit substances within the prison. When this illicit activity came to light, Joran received an additional 7 years for substance distribution, after which he was transferred to a more stringent correctional facility where romantic interactions were prohibited. Joran continues to exchange letters with Ava and other women who correspond with him. Joran has never been formally charged in connection with Natalee Holloway's disappearance. Natalee's vanishing remains an unresolved case, yet her family is certain that Joran is responsible for her death. Everyone in the vicinity believed that this trio, Joran and the two Calpo brothers, were implicated in the incident. They had a reputation as money hunters who defrauded wealthy American tourists. Joran served as the primary operator among them, owing to his fluent English, appealing demeanor, and ability to engage women. The other two brothers acted as accomplices. The victim's family believes that Natalee also fell prey to such deception and that Joran was attempting to extort money from her. While they might not have intended to kill Natalee, something went awry that night. Conceivably, she refused to hand over money, and their attempt to steal from her failed. During the ensuing altercation, the young woman perished, and they disposed of the body to evade accountability. Most plausibly, they jettisoned the body into the ocean, where sharks are present, and accomplices aided them in this act. Alternatively, a more sinister event may have transpired, resulting in Natalee's intentional murder. The Holloway family's conviction in this scenario was only reinforced after news of Joran's murder of Stephanie, whom he also encountered in a casino, departed with, and then killed. Indeed, the two narratives bear striking resemblances. Initially, Peruvian authorities consented to extradite Joran Vandersloot to the U.S. only after he had completed his sentence for Stephanie Flores' murder. However, in May, authorities altered their stance and agreed to temporarily transfer him to the U.S. for arraignment, after which he would be returned to Peru, citing the advanced age of prosecution witnesses who could not endure many more years of waiting. The Peruvian ambassador to the U.S. expressed hope that Joran's temporary extradition would facilitate a process that could bring solace to the Holloway family, who were suffering grief akin to that of the Flores family. Joran himself opposed the move, attempting through an attorney to have the extradition rescinded on grounds of insufficient prior notification. Yet his motion was denied. In late May 2023, he endured a severe beating in a Peruvian prison. In early June, FBI agents arrived in Peru to take custody of him, utilizing one of their planes for his extradition. On June 8, 2023, the aircraft transporting Joran Vandersloot touched down in the United States. He was subsequently transferred to a prison in Birmingham, a location close to Natalee Holloway's hometown.